How important is it to see yourself represented in pop culture?
People with disabilities don't always get highlighted in media, but today's guest does the highlighting himself with his own show.
This is Enable, the Disability Podcast, where we'll share stories, experiences, support, resources, and more for people with disabilities and different abilities. We are at Enable Podcast on social media. My name is Jeff Herbert.
And my name is Kurt Hower. We're talking with DJ Bob Runkel, host of the DJ Bob Show podcast. Thank you for joining us.
You got it.
Bob, please start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your experiences growing up with cerebral palsy.
Well, before I start, typically how I start my podcast is I always say, what is your elevator pitch? So it's kind of weird that I've got to do my own elevator pitch. But I was diagnosed with CP at the age of 2 because I was born 3 months early, and then closer to 2 that my parents kind of realized that there were more than just delays. I wasn't walking, I wasn't doing the normal benchmark that kids my age do physically. So that's basically the short version of the CP story.
Well, I guess I would kind of like to know what challenges you face in your daily life as a person with CP.
Well, one of the things that I want to kind of debunk or dispel is that, oh, and I'm not naming any names here, that's not what I do, but there are some people in the CP community that say that they quote-unquote suffer from CP. Unless you have underlying conditions, what's the point in saying that you're suffering?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah.
The challenges that I face, I'm not ambulatory, I can't walk, so there's that challenge. There are some fine motor skills issues there, and but I honestly don't think, because I've grown up with it, rather than being in an accident somehow or something like that, I've just kind of learned to live with it.
I know exactly what you mean. Bob, I'm someone that has been hard of hearing his whole life. I was just born with it. It's always been. I've always been deaf Jeff. I'm always going to be deaf Jeff, and that's never going to change. So while I recognize that there are challenges that are inherent to that, I can't necessarily hear things as well as other people, or I have to approach some situations differently, or get resources.
Yeah.
I do try and focus on the things that I can do and not the things that I can't do.
Of course, there are noticeable things like people with CP. Some of us, have something called a startle reflex, where we get not scared, but we jump at loud noises. So, needless to say, the 4th of July is not my favorite holiday. Because it's something that I can't control. There's that, and then some of us, when we get our body gets tight, and we have something called spasticity. So there's that. There are things that I deal with, but it's just so baked in my DNA that it's just okay. We're just dealing with this today.
What kind of support is helpful for you? You mentioned several things that can help you and improve the quality of life.
Well, the thing about CP is that aside from the physical attributes, I'm fine. It's like it's not progressive. It doesn't get worse. There are attributes to it that get worse, but as a whole, it just stays pretty content and pretty consistent, rather.
One of the things I love about your podcast, Bob, that you host is that you just approach it like everybody else. Like you don't do it any differently because of CP.
No.
You'll talk about it sometimes, but like it's not the focus of your show.
No, and I never used to. I never used to talk about it.
What made you want to start a podcast? I mean, you've hosted it now for 15 years, correct?
Yeah, I mean, Jeff, you and I can relate. We are radio nerds and we love that stuff.
Yeah.
That's how we know each other. Essentially, and it started out by me realizing that I couldn't be a radio jock. Like, it was too physically demanding. I was running my own board. I was doing 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, live, taking phone calls on an internet radio station. And my boss at the time said, "You can't commit to this schedule. We wish you could because you're good, but you just can't." And that wasn't an insult. He wasn't saying it because of my disability. He was saying it because I wasn't giving them what they needed at that point. So he said, "Why don't you start a podcast?" And I said, "What's a podcast?" Because nobody knew what it was. It was used for businesses, for like finance. And then, I was still doing the top 40 stuff and still trying to kind of put radio in the DNA of the podcast. But then there was this moment of like, wait, I can just have conversations with people? People will listen to that and like it? Okay. Yeah, so that's really the transition.
Well, we'd like to know a little bit more about the show, and I guess on the show you're talking a lot about nostalgia and pop culture. Why is that important? And what are some of your favorite guests you've had on the show?
Jeff Herbert. No, I think why it's so important to me, it's not as much as nostalgia based as it used to be. Because pop culture was really my way into the world. When you can't play outside as a kid and you're limited to what you can do, what's in front of you? The TV, the radio, later on the computer. I mean, so I really latched on to pop culture in a way where people would watch things and be like, "Oh, I love that show," but for me, it was like everything meant something, and everything means something a little deeper than the average viewer or listener would.
Got it.
And if I could take these people back to a simpler time or teach them something new about a television show that's coming out or a movie that's coming out and talk to the creatives behind it and give them an interview that they've never been given, that's the goal here.
Bob, I know you've talked a little bit about this before, but do you remember the first time you saw yourself represented in like a TV show or a movie?
Yes, and it's a very full circle moment for me. In the mid 90s, when Sesame Street was gearing up for, I believe, its 25th season, they wanted to diversify the cast a little bit. And they found this girl in a wheelchair named Tara. And Tara was on there for 8 years. And I loved her. I idolized her because you don't see yourself. And especially at that Sesame Street watching age, everything is impressionable. Cut to 2022. My friends have a birthday party for me on Zoom. They say to me, "Bob, we have a surprise for you. Somebody's coming in the Zoom." And it's her.
Oh,
And since then, she's been my big sister. We talk every other day. were that tight. And she was one of the people that inspired me to do the podcast without even realizing it, because I realized I can do something. I can be a part of this thing that I love so much.
Yeah, for me, I don't know if you know Jerry Jewell.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was my first introduction into somebody with CP, and she was on the Facts of Life.
I've tried to get her several
Is that right?
times.
Okay. That was my first experience with someone on television.
Tara and I talk about this all the time. She always asks me, like, do you really think you wouldn't have started the podcast if it wasn't for me? I'm like, no, because I wouldn't have had a reference point.
Yeah.
And honestly, that was really eye opening for her, because she didn't realize how much of an impact she had while doing that show. So it helped me, but I think it also helped her realize her self worth within the entertainment world. So it was a win win for everybody.
We're talking with DJ Bob, host of the DJ Bob Show podcast on Enable, the Disability Podcast. Please follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Next, we'd like to talk about enabling friendship, because even when it feels like it, you're not alone. We're not defined solely by the things that we can't do when there's so many things that we can do.
Yeah, Bob, we'd really like to hear a little bit more about you and what your life is like, what you do outside of the podcast, and how you find people like you to connect with socially.
It's interesting you say that, because Jeff knows this. My podcast is a huge part of my life.
Hmm.
When I'm not doing this, I'm talking to friends with, talking to my friends from high school, talking to just having friends that I can hang out with, and just connecting beyond the disability. I mean, I'll be honest, there's a stigma, and I'm sure that you deal with this too, guys, is that that when people think they're so smart by doing this, when they realize they have a disability, and they go, "Oh, I have this friend who has a disability too. You'll love them." And I'm like, "Will I?"
I've been there.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
and the blanket answer I give for that is, one size doesn't fit all.
true.
That's not to say I'm against meeting people with other, but it's like, when it's a set up thing, I don't really enjoy it. It's got to be, oh, you have a disability too? Cool. Like, let's talk, let's connect, let's swap stories.
With Jeff and I told you earlier before we started the podcast, um, we were asked to be part of a business resource group, and I got to meet Jeff for the first time. The best thing about this experience for me has been our friendship and being able to talk about similarities that we share. And it's just been very enriching. So I understand fully what you're saying.
I remember when I was younger, when I was in high school, I was on a bowling league for 5 years. And while that was fun, there were people with all types of disabilities. And while that was great, I couldn't connect with every single one of them, because they were nonverbal, or they couldn't understand, or they were not cognitively able to, have a conversation with me. I love meeting people with disabilities, but not when it's organized, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only thing that you can connect with a person on, too, because the disabilities don't define us. And they're part of our lives, but
We've never talked about disability, with the exception of this podcast and some other stuff, but like, we just hang out, and that's what I want.
right. I mean, Bob and I like to geek out over radio more than anything. So,
Yes.
Nice.
I am curious though, Bob. For when you do go out, and one of the reasons we do this podcast is because we want to show people, that they're not alone in the experiences, and not everything one size fits all, like you said. But when you do go out with friends and family, do you experience any challenges?
I do, because you'd be surprised how many places are still not wheelchair accessible, even though they say they are. Because, you know, parking is terrible for a lot of places, especially in New York. In New York and Long Island, where I am, like, it's hard to get anywhere, let alone having a disability. So, yeah, we need to work on accessibility everywhere.
Hmm.
Yeah, Jeff and I were talking about a story that appeared this week in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, at the state capitol. And people were advocating for disability rights. And lo and behold, the Capitol has limited access to the second level. And on the second level, that's where the governor's
You
office
see,
is.
you see my face turning. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. So they told him, well, we can get you up, but if there was a fire or an emergency, we'd have a very difficult time getting you down. And terrible that in this day and age that
you
exists.
kidding me?
No,
Are you kidding me?
no.
Wow.
And that's the state capital for Pennsylvania.
That's lovely. Not. Um, we're still not where we need to be as far as accessibility goes.
That's for sure. Well, what do you wish more people knew about you and others with similar experiences?
We're not saints. We're not the golden child. We're not perfect. We're not ever. We're not like, oh, everything is so happy, and we're not. Just because we have a disability doesn't mean that we can't put an expletive out there every once in a while. We can't talk about things. We're not we're not saints. We're not perfect.
That's right. We're people.
Yeah. That kind of makes me mad because people think, oh, they're this, I'm this. I guess the right way of putting it would be like the poster child. I don't want to be the poster child for anything that I do. Podcasting, I'm I'm writing a book right now. I just want to give people what I would have wanted as a listener or a reader.
That's great. It's funny that you mentioned that you don't want to be treated any differently or have different expectation. It reminded me of when I was in like high school, and like the stereotype about when the guy picks up the girl for the date, and the parents are very like, don't mess around. Every single parent I had treated me differently because I was hard of hearing. So they were like, "Oh, he's got a disability. There's no way he would be anything but a nice boy."
Exactly.
Which we know better.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, totally. Yeah. Hi, Bob. Thank you again so much for sharing your story and your experiences. Do you have any closing thoughts that you would like to share?
I kind of said one size doesn't fit all, but I want to throw this out there. A couple years ago, I wrote an article about podcasting with a disability. Yahoo featured it, MSN featured it. It was kind of crazy how it all blew up. But the quote that ended it was, "Let your disability be in the background and press record," which means I could have given up, but I have a disability. I don't care. It's just what I do. So I just press record, literally and figuratively. So thank you guys for having me today.
Absolutely. Thank you again for joining us. This is Enable, the Disability Podcast. We are at Enable Podcast on social media. Please like, follow, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, including the DJ Bob Show podcast.
Please.
And we hope that you'll find this as rewarding as we do. And we just ask you to share the podcast with your friends and family so we can share more stories of people with disabilities and different abilities that bring us all together.